how many years have you been doing POPO?
So 6 years. And then I did the 52-52.
How did you find out about the fest?
It was our local community radio station has a poetry show, Writing on the Air. And I actually did not hear the show, but a friend of mine who worked at the station who knew I was into postcards said, hey, did you hear about this? And he gave me the information. So I'm not even sure who was on, whether, it could have been Judy or Gabriel. I don't even know who they had on the first time.
Those are my 2 guesses.
Yeah, mine also.
So you're a postcard fanatic.
Yes, that's how it started. And corresponding with Poetry Postcard Fest, I was attempting to reopen communication with my older sister. And I had this collection of over 800 postcards that I had gathered from museums of artworks that I had actually seen and loved. And if they had the postcard, I bought it. And I just started sending them out. So the first year, they were all artwork.
How does your sister fit into this?
I was just trying to reopen communication with her because she had told my mother she wasn't coming home that Christmas because she was going to spend Christmas with her created family as opposed to her biological family. And it kind of hurt my mother's feeling. And I was once very good, especially when I was on the road. I traveled 9 years with a theatrical production, sent postcards all the time. We actually had a thing called Art Night where we would get together and make collages. My friend Joe Sears and I would pass things back and forth. I also was a paper maker, more active at that time. We would use homemade papers. He did watercolors on them. Of course, when you're on the road, there's always pornography left in the rooms behind. We made some nasty cards that we had to put into envelopes. A whole lot of Nixon doing, I don't know where we got those Nixon heads, but we were replacing porn stars with Nixon. So that was an adventure. But so I had kind of fallen out of the habit of doing postcards.
Oh, that was the visual I came here for.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad we both wore black t-shirts so we could make a quick getaway. How does POPO augment your own poetry composition practice?
It has completely changed the way I send postcards. Send an average of 15 a week. I start with every family member gets one. Every niece or nephew in college gets a postcard every week. And then I've got a few other people I'm active with sharing postcards, whether it's art card swaps. Carmen Kennedy and I, in fact, I invited her to the fest the first time, are constantly exchanging beautiful artwork. What was the question?
How does it augment your own poetry composition practice?
It's so I completely use the style that you first introduced me to. Open with a quote, or open with a little note of where I am, have a quote, and quite often followed with the instant poem. Sometimes it's more conversational, especially with family. I might slip something else in if we're sharing information, but it's how I write postcards now. This year I did the ModPo class that Stanley had suggested, which was just joyous because truly not a writer, by nature, and to be exposed to so much good writing was a great thing. And in fact, that's the thing about the fest too. To get good writing and participate in that.
So you get a list of 31 and you obliterate that. How many did you send out for the fest last year?
So the last fest, I sent 70 some out. And I'm still kind of working. on it. I've kind of gotten away from it just because I'm catching up with some other things, but because of the relationships, Colette, Ina, uh, oh, there's a whole list of people who now are on my regular postcard list. I probably exchange 3-4 cards a year with Colette Dutton.
She creates beautiful cards, doesn't she?
Oh man, and I try to. She actually encouraged, just because of the size of her work. I always worked on the pre-stamped postcard from the post office for years and years. That's what I've sent and collaged on top of those. But because of her cards, I've actually expanded size a little bit and played with larger collages, which is a breakthrough for me.
How do stamps fit into your whole aesthetic approach?
This last fest, it was all about the stamps, because I found I did a recondo of my art space and cleaned up, and I found 15 sheets of stamps from the 80s, 32 and 33-cent stamps that I obviously bought while I was on the road for a collector friend of mine who died, and I never had given them to him. And so I augmented with a 3 or 2 cent stamp, and everybody got vintage stamps from that era this year.
Do you have those stamps, or can you show them on the screen? Do you have them handy?
Well, there's hardly any left. I have a few, some Humphrey Bogart stamps. I had that whole Hollywood series, and I had the series of events of the decades, which were fun. And I've used them on other cards also, but I did for the fest this year, handmade cards with interesting stamps. Now, a couple years ago, I had, as thank yous to the girls, who I believe are drivers often of the event, and others. I found the Wonder Woman postcards that matched the stamps that they put out, the Wonder Woman stamps. So yes, if it's possible, and so a cool stamp is well worth it to me, and I always look at the stamp, and now of course I'm one of the hand cancel guys. I've got to deal with my local postie. They're often not at the counter when I get there, but they leave the stamp for me just around the corner, and I can hand stamp them myself.
Bada boom, bada bing.
Unlike when I tried to do it in New York one time, they told me, nope, only one station in New York hand cancels anymore. And I'm looking at the hand cancel thing right there going, oh, come on. Seriously? Would have it had to be dated?
What are the things you love about the fest?
Well, it challenges me to create artwork and to improve my writing. The community. Like I said, I have developed true postcard exchange friends, that ongoing relationship. And I encourage people to do it also. I'm pushing hard. We had 3 close friends of mine this year from Austin. So it would have been Joy Cunningham, Darla Johnson, and then of course Carmen.
Did they have a good time?
Yes, Darla and I had a get together where we laid all our cards out together. We haven't had. It's been probably 3 years since we've had a meetup. We used to do it regularly. Kind of Gabriel was the driver of it too, so that might be part of the issue. But I've tossed it out a little bit, and I also asked Judy one time if she would go on writing on the air again, because I talked to those guys and they said they would. It's time to talk about it again, and because you're doing the push this year, we're going to try and get on.
Far out. I appreciate your efforts. If you were the POPO Postcard Master General and could change anything about the fest, what would you do?
I don't know that I've had any issues. I participate online. I So that's covered. Um, I was very happy when you instituted the fee. I thought that was genius because response truly jumped, or the number of cards I was getting truly jumped when people had to invest in it that little bit, and just to support the cause also is great. I think you're doing a hell of a job. I don't know.
How does the Facebook page, the Postcard Facebook page, help or hinder your experience with the fest?
I think it helps. I just love seeing I'm one of the people who loves to see the cards as they sort of come in, or in groups. I try to do it kind of in groups as they come in, just so they don't get lost in the world. And I like to know that they landed. That's one of the best things when you get that response. And I know not everybody's on the Facebook, but it helps me keep up with people.
Where else ought they hear about this festival to increase participation?
I don't know how exactly, but just to encourage the act of writing. So how do we reach people to do that? Maybe it's folks like me, who want to go on the air. The other day, I met with two people down at our public library. I have so many cards. It's a goofy situation, and people give them to me now. Also, and so I brought a big box of cards down and said, go through them, take whatever you want. And if I see something I truly covet, I'm going to grab it back. There was only one. It was a card I bought specifically for someone else. Lauren Bacall, vintage Lauren Bacall card. My former employer, Jason Williams, doesn't care for her at all, so I always send him her image.
And then a picture of Nixon blowing a dog.
Exactly. No, he thought we were crazy. We were doing that.
What advice would you have for someone considering joining the fest?
I would say jump in. Don't try to do too much the first year. I think I saw this year just a little bit some new people suddenly receiving handmade cards and wondering if they were doing something wrong. And people are always told there is no wrong way to do this, but that they just have to. I guess we just have to keep reminding people, and then allow the growth to happen. There was I gave those the art cards away, and then I started doing handmade cards. But there was a year, it was the year of 52, kind of kicked my ass. I fell behind. I was doing handmade cards for that. I caught up in time for the fest, but I went, you know what? I'm going black and white photos this year. I'm going to send photos of my favorite. You got to do what you can. And I think people are pretty forgiving when people, that's another good thing about the website. When people let other folks know, hey, I'm swamped, I'm behind, but it's still happening. I was just looking through some old cards, and I got a card from Stanley in 2016 in December that, he just was behind. And which is also a joy. I get good mail. There is a local poet quite established here that makes beautiful cards. I've never been able to get him to join.
What does he say?
He just kind of nods and he's like, I don't. It's just not for him. He thinks, but he does it with me. We're exchanging cards all the time, and he makes beautiful cards. Maybe he just would be overwhelmed by trying to do every day. I don't know.
Any other postcard stories of yours we should know about?
So I do a thing there's often postcards I want to see come through the mail. Typically, they're homoerotic or some kind of sexy thing, maybe Herbert's photographs, or Annie Leibovitz, somebody like that. And I send them pre-addressed and stamped to myself, to a variety of friends, and with the promise of every card gets a return. And you could just send the card, or you could say something. Just finishing a 36 card box with a director friend of mine up in New York City. I bought I had the London box and she had the Paris box from the Magnum Photography Collection. And we just had this exchange relationship going on. And so I've started those just for myself and just because I want to see some of that stuff go through the mail.
Do you have a postcard poem of yours you'd like to read to us?
I'm going to pull one up from this year. I feel like I'm getting better. So for Andrea Thomas, I sent this collage. It's a delta over a desert. The poem was, so the quote was, the path is a prior interpretation of the best way to traverse a landscape, from Rebecca Solnit. The weary albatross, wings above a starry vault, wings upon the fields of heaven, wings of transparent night.
Just like that.
That was it.
Tim, I'm really appreciative of your inspired participation in the Postcard Fest. I'm really grateful you do it.
I wouldn't miss it now. That first year, I felt I struggled maybe a little bit word-wise, but I've always felt like I sent a good card, and I've got, and like you said, the stamps and rubber stamping also, all of those things are important to me. No, it's, and I've just encouraged people all the time. I'm just hoping we can really knock it out of the park this year.
Well, we've got plans. Stay tuned.
Yes. Cool.
Thanks, brother. Happy holidays.
Yes, to you also. We go bowling for Jesus every Christmas. My one religious activity of the year. And so actually the day before, I get to go on our co-op radio station and do a half hour of bowling songs.
Including Take the Skinheads Bowling.
That's what we're ending with.
Yeah.
That will be the final show.
That's probably the best bowling song ever. Genius.
There's actually some good ones out there.
Is that right?
A couple other punky bowling songs. It's been a thing. Of course, Nixon was a bowler.
I did not know.
No. There's a great postcard of him bowling because it's been turned into a basketball court now, but there was a bowling alley in the White House.
Well, I think that's an upgrade.
To go to basketball?
Yes, I think so. Well, don't end up in the gutter, man.
No, we're going to avoid that. Well, excellent.
All right, thanks, Tim. Good to engage you in this way.
Thank you so much. Enjoyed it.